when it comes to the war room on the first draft night, talk to me about the intensity that goes down in there. How, like, this draft, we know the Titans want to take a tackle or pull up Bengals and our quarterback got hurt. We're still going to go get a wide receiver type of situation. When you guys are sitting there, and Callahan, who was on, he said you guys were happy with J.C. Latham or Joe Alt. Like, as it starts ticking and Joe Alt goes out at 5, like, what's the energy like in that room?
So it's a ton of work that goes into it beforehand. And I will say, and we were talking about this at the office last week, I will say, of every draft room I've been in, this was probably the most accurate board that I've ever been a part of, because we rank them vertically, then we rank them horizontally, right, by position. This was probably the most accurate board I've ever been a part of. Now,
when you say vertically and horizontally, are you talking about best players vertically?
Yeah, so we have the positions going horizontally, right? Just straight across, split offense, defense. And so if we got quarterbacks here, we rank them vertically, from 1 to whatever. And you do that for every position. And then you go across horizontally, like, okay, is this quarterback better than this receiver? And then you start adjusting the cards as you go. So it's kind of like this as it goes across, the board. And so we pretty much knew, just based on our research, we knew exactly where the first 4 picks were going to be. And for us, the draft started at 5 at the Chargers. And then you get to a spot where you're like, okay, we have 3 guys, over these next 3 picks that we're good with any one of these 3. We don't have to make any sudden moves to jump up, that it's going to cost us in the future. And so it was a waiting game. We done enough research to know that the Chargers were going tackle. And so you sit there and you're like, okay, which one? And then you start playing they got Rashawn Slater at left tackle. So I could see JC going because he's played right tackle. Right. You know what I mean? But then you're like, well, the Chargers were at the pro day, at Joe Alt's pro day. And you start hearing like they really like him. And so you're like, yeah, I could see that too. So you start trying to, you do that part. But then you got to take it a step further because the Giants are right below you. And you're like, well, the Giants have, drafted pretty well on the O-line and they got some guys. But it's like, all right, well, what if one of the tackles, say whoever they take, whether JC or Joe, but what if the Giants decide we're going to take tackle? I'm like, okay, then that pushes one of the other guys to us, and we got to be comfortable with that. So we work all those scenarios. So when we got there, and we're just sitting there, and it's like you're at the behest of the Chargers. So now you start hitting your contacts, like, hey, what are you hearing? What do you know? You're hitting your contacts that are in the green room, like, hey, what does it look like over at this table and this table? And then, we usually find out a little bit before, it's announced.
Right.
And so it's like, Chargers pick is in, and then it shows on our screen and it says Joe Alt. And so we're like, okay.
And
like,
do you guys see that before?
Yeah.
So as soon as they put the card in before Goodell walks up,
we know.
Okay, he's off the board.
Because the next team is immediately on the clock.
Got you.
And so we're like, okay. And now we wait.
Right.
To see what the Giants do. And once we saw that Joe went to the Chargers, we were pretty certain that that the Giants were going to take Neighbors. And so it was like, all right, say, hey, Salgi, get me JC's number. And, Salgi's been here. I think this was his 19th draft with the team. And he's like, hey, do we want to jinx it? And I was like, listen, if we got to rip it up, we rip it up. And then we call the next person, you know what I mean? Yeah. I was like, but just have it ready. And so he got me the number, and we waited. And when they took Neighbors, we was like, all right, we got the big fella.
When you're going to take JC and the teams behind you don't have a need at tackle, is there like, are you trying to act till you figure out like, hey, would y'all want to come up?
No, it was some teams like that called and they were like, hey, like, we're interested in coming up.
Was there anything close?
No, because for me, it was like, we're not going to pass on a dude that we think like super highly of. Yeah. Like just to gain, like move back a couple spots. And yeah, it was, we fielded calls probably the first 5 minutes we were on the clock just to see, if anything was going to blow us away. and didn't come close. And so we picked up the phone and called the big fella and was damn happy to get him.
What's been the craziest draft room moment you've been a part of?
Like everyone here watching right now is thinking about the movie Draft Day.
Yeah.
Tradings, move.
And maybe the player,
you still get your
maybe
guy,
you talk about one
though.
where the player's not playing anymore to where you could talk about it.
No, I'll tell you, last year we get on the clock in the third round and Vrabes and I are sitting there and we're discussing. We're like, hey, man, I'm like, let's go running back, right here. And you're looking on the board. And, we were like, hey, let's go with the Tulane kid, Tajae. So then a team calls and they're like, hey, we're interested in coming to your pick. And they made an offer. And so I have these screens in front of me that has like the trade calculator. And so, I started looking at I was like, no, that's not going to get it.
Is your trade calculator like Madden? Like it's just green?
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. Cause I don't play Madden.
Yeah. I don't hurry up. You're trying to click it in.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't play Madden like that. But it's like similar. So there's a bunch of different ones that you can use, trade charts, but mostly everybody used the Jimmy Johnson trade chart. So just clicking through it, I told them their offer didn't work. And then I was like, but hey, if you give us this, and a next year's this, then yeah, we could do it. And then the guy who I was speaking to, he was like, nah, we'd be out. I was like, all right, cool. We're going to make the pick. So I tell Salgi, I'm like, hey, can you give me Tajae Spears' number? I think by this time it's probably, let's just say 3 minutes on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm literally dialing the number, hit the last number, that team calls back and they keep calling. They want to do the deal.
Mm-hmm.
The one that you proposed.
The one that I proposed, they said no. And then they came back right as we're calling Tajae to accept the deal.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's too late. So pick up the phone. Tajae answers. He's like, hello. And all I say is Tajae. And he goes crazy.
Yeah.
Like screaming, everybody in the family, everybody's cheering. And I'm like, yo, like I haven't said anything yet. And he's like, let's go. So I'm like, hey man, like, hold on. Like, let's talk. And he's going crazy.
You're thinking about taking the deal.
No, I'm not going. No.
Oh, you're just not. Yeah.
I thought you were about to be like, hey, hold on a second. I got to.
We might be taking you here. We might not.
But then click, phone hangs up. And so I'm like, call back. So I call back. My bad. Hey, y'all got to shut up. And so I get back. I'm like, hey man. And I'm, call him like, hey, we're going to take you with this pick. And everybody's still going crazy. By this time, it's like, I see it now. It's 1:48 on the clock before we run out of time. Click, phone hangs up again. And at this point, I look at Vin Marino. I'm like, just turn it in. Like, we've tried. Him and his family will see it come up on it. Like, just turn it in. So we call back again. He's like, man, I'm sorry. I was like, well, hold on. I said, I'm going to let you talk to Coach Vrabes. And, of course, you guys know Vrabes. Vrabes gets on the phone. He's like, hey, listen, man, if this is the start of your NFL career, you're not getting off on a good foot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they talk for a little bit. And then, I mean, obviously, Tajae's great. Is just super good dude, works his behind off. But that was like a crazy – because
are you thinking like as you're dialing the number and then the team wants to accept whatever the trade is, or is a part of you's like, oh, I've already dialed the number, I can't?
No, and that's always my thought process. Is like once I make up my mind to pick, like it's over. Like I'm moving on. Like I'm not entertaining that. And I mean, for us, obviously you document everything. You got a camera right in your face.
Yeah. As
you're doing this, so you got to maintain maximum composure. And it's but again, like once we make our mind up to pick, we're picking.
When you talk about the camera, man, I think about that AJ Brown shade.
Yeah.
Vrabel standing up, walking, kind of like doing one of these things right here. It's one of those not keeping composure moments.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's because you have a responsibility to your fan base to try to give them as much as possible and show them everything that you're doing. But when it's that, now what I'm feeling on the inside versus what's being shown could be totally different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and everybody has their little things that they do. You know, I have a baseball that I'm usually like have with me, whether I'm, you know, squeezing the hell out of the baseball, you know, underneath the table or whatever the case may be. I remember, you know, Les would have his little shards of paper that he's just kind of ripping up. I know Jeff Fisher had a lucky coin, you know, that he had with him, you know, on draft night. So everybody has their little deals to just, you know, help them keep composure.
You mentioned earlier, like, this is the most accurate board you've ever been a part of. What do you mean by that?
From the way that we had them ranked, to how they came off the board, you know. So some teams, everybody does it different. Some teams stack the board just for them and how they see it and who fits them, you know. So there may be some good players that are not on your board because it doesn't fit your scheme. And then you have some teams that stack it based on, okay, this is how we think they're going to, you know, come off the board. And for us, we stack it for us. You know, we don't care what everybody else think. We stack the board for us. And as we're sitting there and we're watching, I think everybody felt Caleb Williams was going number one. So you knew that how that was going to go. But then as we start going positionally, you're looking and they were just coming off, you know, the exact way we predicted it to, which is ultimately what led us, you know, in the second round at 38, you know, to take Big Sweat, you know, there. And what I like to do, you know, particularly with Miss Amy and Kenneth is, you know, leading up to the draft, like, hey, like, come on in, let us show you the board, and we're gonna talk through every position, and this is where we think this is how it's gonna go. And we got to the second round. We met earlier that morning, and it was like, hey, this is what I think how the second round is gonna unfold. Once this team here is going to pick this, and then once they pick this, it's going to be a run at this position, and then it's going to be a run here, and then it'll be this, and then once this person goes, then it's going to be another run, and it just went exactly.
I didn't know if you meant whoever's a part of the entire draft process, you guys all kind of accurately saw it the same versus you're like all the times you've been with all the different teams and all the different years.
I'll tell you
like
what, it's
been on different pages.
I'm pretty sure there's been other times in my career, but the one that comes to mind for me, the first time I've ever seen all the scouts and all the coaches have the exact same grade and thought on a player was Rob Havenstein when he came out of Wisconsin, and I was at the Rams and we took him in the second round. He had consistently the same grade by every single person in our organization. That was the first time I've ever seen it. I can't remember seeing it recently. Again, sometimes most of our grades are color, you know, they're color based with a number and decimal system in between. And sometimes you have, like, everybody thinks this guy is a red starter. This guy's going to be a good starter for a long time.
Good.
Red is good.
Okay. Is that the best color?
No, blue.
Blue chip.
Yeah, blue is the, you know, and a lot of times
Hall of Fame,
a lot of times we talk in colors, right? Hey man, this guy's a red player, he's a blue player, and so we talk in colors, and so sometimes even within the red grade, it's like a couple decimals, so it's different levels of red. But then for every single person to have the same exact number grade and color grade on a guy was like a cool thing to see.
You know how you can figure out exactly what the draft is going to happen? You just hire Oz the Mentalist. Do you see that clip?
You know what? I didn't see the clip, but I see all his. I'm a big YouTube short guy because I don't have social media, and so I see all his stuff, and I just think it'll be so dope. I hope he's watching to have him come in during camp.
Yes,
that would be
saw him with the
insane.
Packers and who else?
He's done it for everybody.
On the McAfee show, did you see he predicted the first 13 picks?
No.
Bro.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, he did, I think it was the Raiders. And he was like, Raiders, Brock Bowers at 13. And then he had a small little sheet next to it and started unraveling it. It was like trade here, this pick, every single pick, the first 13 picks.
He's going to have to be our consultant.
Exactly. If he comes in, let us be a little fly.
You just have him in the war room next year.
Just say,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
they're going to pick this guy. But he has to do it in an elaborate scheme every single time.
Can you imagine how funny it would be just to show him in our draft room standing over Callie and I's shoulder, like as the camera pans through our room?
Yeah,
like,
bro, that photo would be so funny.
This is our secret weapon to the
He just
draft.
has an envelope that you guys haven't opened in 300 days. Yeah. Finally, it's like, this is your pick. It's like, he was right.
Yeah.
That was our pick.
Dude, what was your thought on the Atlanta Falcons taking Penix? Being in the GM chair, you kind of see too the video of the owner talking to Terry, the GM, and people are kind of like saying whatever, like, oh, wonder what this conversation is.
That's
like,
a bottling point too.
I kid you not, like we had a inkling that was going to happen, that they were going to take him. You got to understand, our assistant GM Anthony Robinson, he just came from Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
So he spent his whole career in Atlanta. I started my career in Atlanta, with him. So you kind of get a feel for how things are done organizationally, regardless of who's running it.
Mm-hmm.
But we probably about 2 weeks prior, we were sitting around, we were talking about all the, we call it team needs, and we we're kind of going through it, and we were like, quarterback? And it was like, so you start playing with it, and then it kind of became clear. It was like, man, like they really could go Penix right here. And so when it happened, I wish you could see like our room. We kind of like, a couple of us kind of looked at each other like, so it wasn't a real surprise to us.
Yeah. How do you, obviously there's so many variables, but as a GM, like how do you see that pick for like Atlanta?
I mean, I understand.
That's a wild question. Be like, how do you feel that?
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand, because you always have to have a plan for the future. And that's at every position, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can remember, because you study other people's drafts, right? You study how people do it. Organizationally, teams that like Seattle with John Schneider, they've done a good job of always staying, ahead. Mickey Loomis in New Orleans is usually the first one that comes to mind for me, especially when they were rolling. They had Drew and Sean Payton was there. They always drafted a year ahead of a need. So you had a young guy there. You think back when they had Jeremy Shockey, they draft Jimmy Graham in the third. All those times they had, guys up front. I remember when they took Andres Pete, played him at guard early, then he became the tackle. Like they always drafted a year ahead of need. They did it at corner. They did it at receiver. They did it at running back, where you might look heavy at that position, but then the next year they move on from a guy, or a guy's a free agent. They don't pay him, and then they got the next guy. Already, he's already been in the system for a year, and now you just step in and you roll.